Hello and welcome. Sorry, I just recognized that the thumbnail is entirely wrong. I mean, I have created a new one, it's just, as usual, haven't updated it correctly. Hello and welcome back. Puzzle time with Sudoku Sleuth, and today we're going to be playing Change Your Perspective. You know, it's great to be sort of recording puzzles and solving puzzles, of course, once again. And it just made sense to be playing a willpower puzzle. I've featured many puzzles from the man over the years. I think it'd be fair to say years now. This is probably the third year that I have been doing this. And he always creates fantastic puzzles. Looking forward to this one because I'm genuinely not sure how I'm going to go about solving this. So, you know, whenever you're kind of trying to solve a puzzle that you're not entirely sure about, this is going to be interesting. Strap on. It is a 1-star difficulty rating. 95% as of the time of recording, so we should be in for a treat regardless of ISOL. Let's take a look at today's rule set and puzzle, Change Your Perspective by Willpower. So we've got normal Sudoku, magic squares, and KROPKI dots and no negative constraints. Normal Sudoku, you all know what that means. Place the digits 1 to 9 once each in every row. Every column, of course, every 3x3 box without any repeats. Now the colored cells each form a magic square turned 45 degrees. Any three of the same color in a straight line sum up to 15. So essentially what Will is saying is that these three cells have to add up to 15 because they're part of the same magic square. These three cells have to add up to 15. These three cells on the diagonal, because it's all sort of turned 45 degrees, have to add up to 15. Now, when we get into the solve, I'm going to sort of explain how I'm thinking about this. KROPKI dots numbers with a black dot between them are in a ratio of 2 to 1, and not all possible dots are necessarily given. So this cell, if it's a 2, to be in a 2 to 1 ratio, this would have to be 1 or 4, so that essentially one cell is double the other, as with this one. Now what is being clearly stated is not all possible dots are given, so 4 in here, next to the 2, entirely appropriate even though there is no black dot. So, as always, to play along, link in the description down below for you to do so. And with that said, I'm going to restart the clock, see how I get on. Now, where I was going to go with this is that normally with magic squares, and I'm just going to type it in rather than sort of explain it, you can always say that there is a 5 in the middle that, because you need evens and odds, two evens and an odd, yep. And then essentially you would be surrounded by 1, 3, 7, 9, and then 2, 4, 6, 8. Now, normally in a magic square, and there's ways of proving that, this is entirely forced, that there has to be a 5 in the middle, and essentially they add up to 10 plus the 5 to get to 15. So, you know, something like 2 and 8, or 4 and 6, or 1 and 9, or 3 and 7. Now, the challenge that I'm seeing is that the main reason this constraint applies is that normally there's in the language something that says that all the cells are different or they all happen to be in the same box. Now, that is not the case here. I am allowed to have them repeat. That's kind of the assumption I'm going to make to start. And if I get really stuck, then I'm going to try and kind of use the normal thing that I've just showed you here. So let's remove all of these for now, and then let's try that again. Now, what I can do fairly quickly is essentially any cells where, and you know, let's quickly revisit black KROPKI dots. You've got essentially multiples of 2 or kind of powers of 2, 1, 2, 4, and 8. You have the 3 and 6 pairs, and then lastly, they've got the digits that can never be on a black KROPKI dot, 5, 7, and 9. So essentially times 2 times 2 times 2, same again, but there's only 2 sets or a pair. And then obviously half of 5 is 2.5, and double of 5 and or 7 or 9 is kind of a 2-digit number. So these are not allowed. Now, whenever we have 3 in the same box, you can always say that whichever one you have, it's going to be from 1, 2, 4, and 8, because 3, 6 would just repeat one of them. These two would have to be the same. And then the center digit would have to be from 2 or 4. It's either 1, 2, 4 or 2, 4, 8. So essentially, what I'm going to quickly do is look for cells where they are definitely 3 of them that are unique. and place a 2, 4 in there. And I immediately know that these are from 1, 2, 4, 8s, same for all of these. Now, you also know, and I deleted that too quickly, that essentially it's either 1, 2, 4 or 2, 4, 8, that both the 2 and the 4 have to be in that group of 3, meaning that neither are available for any other pairs in the same box. So you can't, even if I use 1, 2, 4, I can't pair the 8 now with anything else, or if I do 2, 4, 8, I can't pair the 2 with the 1. So this has to be 3, 6, which tells me this is another 1, 2, 4, 8. Of course, as is this one. Not brilliant so far. It's not giving me a ton of information. Notice down here, one of them has to be, when you've got 3 pairs, one of them has to be 1, 2, one of them has to be 4, 8, one of them has to be 3, 6. Kind of don't really have room for anything else. And then obviously the remaining digits are the 5, 7, 9s that we put in place earlier. Now, I'm going to say nothing stops this from being 3, 6 pairs, because these 2 cells can repeat, these 2 cells can repeat. You can sort of do that and get away with it. Feels unlikely, but possible under today's rules. Same with this one, because these 2 cells can be the same. They're in different boxes, rows, and columns. 1, 2, 4, 8 here means 1, 2, 4, 8 there. Because this could absolutely be a 1, 2 pair. It doesn't eliminate, and actually that has to be the case. Right, because this cannot be a 3, 6 pair. This is another 1, 2, 4, 8. And I've got 4 of them now. And I know for a fact that one of them, this cell, where am I going with this? That they have to be extremes. So essentially, one of them is a 1, 2 pair, one of them is a 4, 8 pair. And because this is not 2 or 4, this is 1 or 8. Therefore, this is 2 or 4, the 1 with a 2, the 8 with a 4. Can't do much about this one, unfortunately, right now. This doesn't have to be 3, 6. You can essentially get away by saying that this is the 1, 8. And we know that this 1, 8 is not in any of these cells, so totally fine, and then repeat this cell here. So it doesn't have to be a 3, 6 pair. Yeah, I was genuinely afraid of this, that if I don't make the assumption that there has to be a 5 in the middle and, adding up to 10, that I may struggle to solve this one. Let me kind of revisit the language. Colored cells each form a magic square turned 45 degrees. Any 3 of the same color in a straight line sum up to 15. Yeah, I think it's entirely appropriate to say that they could be... Actually, here is something. Sorry. Now that I have these as 5, 7, 9s, I should be able to somewhat deduce what this is. Even if this is the absolute minimum of 5 and 7, I'm at 12. And to get 15, this is a maximum of 3. And 5 and 9 would also work, with 9 and 5 getting to 14, and this would be 1. So this is either 1 with a 2 or 3 with a 6. Now, I know for a fact this is not 1, 2, because same logic that I had earlier, the 2 and 4 have to be in here. Therefore, that is not a 2, that is a 6, that is a 3, and therefore, this is 5, 7. Yep, I'm going with it. And this is a 9. 6 is not here. So we know that this is from 1, 2, 4, 8. Now, again, 3 of them in here. So this is either 3 and a 6. And remember, these are like the extreme ends. They're either going to be 1, 2, or 4, 8. So the challenge is I can't eliminate the option of this not being 3, 6. And I don't really want to pencil mark all of this. So I'm going to keep it as is for now. I mean, probably worthwhile pencil marking this one. And thinking about what these are. Yeah, it's probably worthwhile doing a bunch of things here. Okay, let's think about this. If this is 8, this would have to be 5. This would have to be... I'm fully doing this. If this is 8, can't be 7, that would be 15. So it'd have to be 5, getting me to 13 with a 2, a 1, and a 4. Next option was that this is a 4. Now, with a 5, that would have to be a 6 and a 3, which is possible. Or 4 with a 7 would be 14. And that doesn't work because I would have... Sorry, 4 and a 7 would be 11 because I would have to repeat the 4. That is not possible. So far, this is always a 5. I'm just going to try and remember that. Then the other possibility is that this is a 2. And with a 5, that would be 7. That would be 8, 4. And the 2 would have a 1 in here. 2 with a 7 brings me to 9. And then I would have to have a 6 and a 3. Still possible. Last option is 1. With a 5, that's 6. That would be 9. That doesn't work. 1 with a 7, that would be 8. And then to get 15, that would have to be another 7. So 1 is not possible. Let me just double check that again. 1 would require a 5, which would be a 6. And then I would have to have a 9, so not an option. 1 with a 7 would get me to 8, so I'd need to have another 7 to get 15. See, 1 is just not an option. And am I right in thinking that, with the exception of the 2, I can't have a 7 in here? 2 and 7 gets me to 9, 6 and 3. But the 4 and the 7 would repeat the 4. That doesn't work. The 8 and the 7 would already get me to 15. So it's highly likely that this is a 5. Interesting. Let's see if we can do some more magic squares with these 3 now. 2, 5 would be 7. This would have to be 8. Highly plausible. 2, 7 would be 9. This would have to be 6. Still possible. No, not possible anymore. Because of that 3, I can't have a 6 in here because these would have to be 3s. So the 2 would only work with a 5 at the moment. Good to know. But this is possible at the moment. Eight, right, other options, 6 and 7 will be 13. So 2 in here is plausible. I'm not going to pencil mark this. This is just going to get out of hand very quickly. 6 and 5, that would be 11, and I would have to have a 4. So far, all good. Now the last option, 8, again can't be 7, it would have to be 5, and then it's still a 2. So essentially this is from 2, 4, 8, meaning none of these, and actually of course the fact that this is a 3, 6 pair here means there's no 3, 6s there. So this is 1, 2, 4, 8, this is 1, 2, 4, 8. And because, no, I mean, this can be 6 and 3. This is 6. That could be 5 and 4. This is 6. That could be 7 and 2. So yeah, like I don't have to have extreme digits in here. Interesting. So I mean the 3 6s and the 3 6s are doing that. So I know that one of these pairs is going to be a 3 6. And what's interesting is that both of them are heavily constrained. You see, I already have a pair here. In fact, this has to be a low pair, an extreme pair, I should say, because I've got 3 in row 2. So it's either 1, 2 or 4, 8. Has to be. Otherwise, I don't leave myself enough room. So I should have spotted that earlier, my mistake. Because that means that this is 1, 8, and therefore this has to be 2, 4. And this is immensely helpful because that guarantees now that this is 3, 6, because I cannot have 1, 8 or 2, 4. So that is 3, that is 6. And therefore this is 1, 8, and therefore this is 2, 4. So 6 and 2 would require this to be 7. 6 and 4 would require this to be 5. I'm half tempted to color some of these 1, 8s and 2, 4s. Like, one of them is going to be kind of the lighter, the 1. One of them is going to be the 8. Therefore, one of them is going to be the 4. One of them is going to be the 2. And therefore, that's the green 2, 4. And these are going to be kind of red, orange. This 2, 4, this could be orange or blue. Go with me on this. I'm not entirely convinced this is the right thing to be doing. And it almost logically says that red is this one, but it also says green is this one, if you kind of play that out, and it's clearly not the case. Can't have red and blue connected. Red and, excuse me, green. But anyway, red is definitely in one of these two cells. The blue 1, 8 means what exactly? I can get away with a 2, 4 pair. I don't have to have. I mean, all it's saying is that there's definitely an orange 2, 4 in one of these, and then a 3, 6 pair. And then over here, there's definitely a green / blue and a 3, 6. Yeah, I'm not too sure about this. Let's see if we can squeeze a bit more out of. Yeah, it's just when you color it now, you miss the fact that these are on the same magic square. So 6 and 2. I mean, again, this is 5, 7, isn't it? Yeah, same deduction. Five, 7 is 12, and therefore this is definitely 3. And therefore this is definitely orange with red or green. And with 3, 6s as such, this has to be a 3, 6 pair now. 3, 6 means that this is, well, we've got red and orange, so this has to be blue, green. Right. The fact that this is 1, 2, 4, 8 is a problem because then we'd end up with 5 of them potentially in the column, unless, of course, this is 6, 3. So no other way around it, because anything else would break this. This would have to be 6, this would have to be 3. This being 6 with a 5, 7 tells me that this is 2, 4. We've kind of done that math a few times now, so this can't be 8. Red, orange feels very likely. The alternative blue, green sadly is just as possible, so can't say much about that. Blue, green means that is definitely not blue, that is definitely orange, and therefore this is definitely a 2, 4. This cannot, I mean, this cannot be a blue-green pair, obviously. Nothing stops it from being a red-orange pair at the moment. But equally, I could be using one of blue and one of green with an orange 2, 4. So, short answer is I don't know. Look at this, this is very tricky. 15, oh, actually, hang on, this way. With the 3, these two have to add up to 12. That can only be 8 and 4. So the maximum digits from both. Yep. With a 4 in here, that can't be 8. Sorry, that can't be 4 or 1. That 8 tells me that's 4, 2 now. That 8 tells me that has to be 1, 2. 2 and 6 tells me to get to 8, this has to be 7. Therefore, this has to be 5. 6 and 8, this has to be 1 to make the magic square work. 1 and 5, this has to be 9. And yeah, hey presto, 2, 4, 9. So far at least, this magic square has obeyed kind of the normal magic square rules. And therefore I have a 4, 8 pair down here, and therefore I have a 1, 2 pair up here. Up here. Still have no idea about the colors. Same logic, no? 3, 2's too small. This would have to be 4. This would have to be 8. This would have to be 2. This would have to be 4, 8, 4. And therefore we know, actually, for a change, the high digit, the red, is the high digit. And therefore this is not red. This is red. I'm not going to necessarily keep the colors. I've kind of got the value that I need out of them. In fact, that's 8. That's 4. 2 with 6, that's 8. That's again 7. That's 5. And, you know, logic would normally say 1 and 9, which kind of works. 1 here, 9 there. But essentially, we need 2 digits that add up to 10. Can't be... No, it could be 2. No, this is not 2 or 8. 3 sees both of them, so it's not a 3, 7 pair, so it's the 7. It can be 1 and 9. Can it be 4, 6? No, because this cell cannot be either. So yeah, this is 1, this is 9. 4 here tells me that this is 2, 8. And this is either 4, 2, 1 or 4 again. Don't know the answer to that yet. Sort of. 6 with an 8 would require a 1, which doesn't work. So that's 2. That's an 8. That goes back to 7. This is still 1 or 4. 1, 3, and 6 tells me that this is from 2, 4, and 8. And there's a definite 4 in here. That is not the 4. That is the 4. 4 and 2 is 6. That has to be 9. 7 and 3 would require 10 with a 5. 7 and 6 would be 13. That would need to be a 2, which is not possible. 7 and 3 with a 5, it is. 4, 3, that's an 8. And that's a 1, that's a 2, that's a 6. And I think all of them ended up being magic squares with 5s in the middle, you know, usual sort of combos. I'm sure it would have been easier from the start for me to make that assumption, but I'm glad I didn't, even if it made the solve a lot trickier. 8, of course, made that 2. I am missing 5 and 3. 3, 5. And then let's just finish it up with Sudoku. Oh, I did put the color, but not the digit. And then there's a 4 in here. I need 5, 6. I need 7, 9. So this would be 3, 5, or 6. This would have to be 5. That would have to be 6. That would have to be, 5, 3, 6, 7. Not resolve these. Then I need a 1 in here. 2, a 1, 3 pair. 3, 1, 9. Another 1, 4. That's 1. That's 4. 5 and 6. 6 and 5. 7 and 8. 8 and 7. 7 and 9. Not resolved. Need a 3. Can't be another 7, 9 here, so that's the 7 or 9. That's another 7 or 9. That's a known digit of 5. That is a known digit of 1. That's another 7 or 9. Still not resolved. That is 7 or 9, except it's 7. So that resolves a bunch of things for us. 9, 7, 9, 7. 3, 4, 5 is here. 6, 7, 8, and 9. That's 9. And if I've not made any mistakes, that's an 8 for the finish. Fantastic puzzle, Mr. Power. I would have been, if I'm honest, a little bit miffed if it didn't end up being kind of the normal magic squares. But like I said, I'm happy that there was a bit of ambiguity in the rules and this made it a little bit more difficult to solve. Hope you guys enjoyed the puzzle and the video, and I'll see you back soon. Bye-bye for now.